Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Mexi here once again, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Paper Mario, aka for those who lived in Japan, Mario Story for the Nintendo 64. So, last time, we essentially did manage able to explore around the majority of the forms of Dry Desert, and so much to the point for the fact that, after all, we've already checked every single area in Journey forms within Dry Desert, and for instance though, we did somehow manage able to obtain not only a couple of items, but also the insane amount of those coins. In addition to that, we also did manage able to try to find some more badges and what have you, like for instance though, the spin attack, and in addition to that, we also did manage able to find the forms of, well, not only the runaway pay kind of badge, which as a result it allows us able to actually go ahead and get ourselves star pieces while running away in battle, and in addition to that, we also did manage able to actually upgrade one of our first partners, which appears to be Koopa, all thanks to the forms of the Super Block. So naturally speaking, I was about the fact that he can now learn the ability to use, not only for the sake of the forms of Dizzy Shell, but also about the fact that his attack power was actually increased. So yeah, everything else checks out there. In addition to that, we also did manage able to find our way to the forms of Dry Outpost. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that after all, it's actually not that far, as long as you were able to try to go straight across within, like, you know, 7 separate transitions when it comes to the forms of Dry Desert itself. But ultimately, that was about the fact I just liked able to explore into Dry Desert as it is, to try to find some secrets and all that stuff. So that's besides the point. So today, for this video, is that, as you can tell, we're about to take a nap in the forms within Dry Outpost, and as a result, we need to find the specific clues of how to figure out how on earth we can able to try to find more about the forms of Dry Ruins that most NPCs keeps on and on about it. So either way, again, I do apologize about the fact that my commentary is a little bit slightly slippy sometimes, but that's mainly because no matter what though, it's about the fact that we are getting very close to the excitement in terms of the forms of the glorious Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo Direct is getting closer by now, so logically speaking, I was about the fact that, well, technically we've already got about approximately 48 hours left, or should I say, we've only got about 2 more days left now until the actual hype is about to be begun in terms of the forms of Nintendo Switch 2, so we can definitely hear more about the forms of games library. In addition to that, some features will be added, and in addition to that though, how the Nintendo Switch 2 actually compares to the forms of Nintendo Switch 1. So as a result though, yeah, we'll talk more about that later. So as you can see, we meet up with the forms of Marley right here, and as you can see, we actually have a choice between the special course, in addition to that, the primarily course, and in addition to that, or ordeally course, and there's also the third option, which I can't probably think about on top of my head, because as you can tell, I somehow managed able to get almost, you know, incredibly hyped about the forms of Nintendo Switch 2 already, because generally speaking, I was about the fact that, for those of you probably wondering about the fact that, well, before we get into more details about this though, as you can see, we did somehow choose the highest valuable when it comes to the forms of coins we need to pay, and that's of course special course. So, what's even cool about the forms of special course in general, well, we'll get into more details about that though if we get into later battles to come. So either way, before we get into more details about the forms of specific stuff is worth noting for, we need to head back for a moment and try to able to actually explore into the shops quickly. Because, first of all, we need to able to talk to one of those NPCs right here. And as a result, though, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna have to store my items for a bit, and then hopefully though I'll be back for able to try to use them until for later, because generally speaking I'm probably not gonna waste those items until specifically later on, because generally speaking I was about the fact that I did the math of how many items you can only carry up to. Well, it turns out we need to only carry for about 10 items at a time. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that unlike in the Thousand Year Door, where basically though you start the game off, well, specifically the original GameCube release, that basically though is about the fact that you can only carry up to 10 items at a time. But eventually though, when you're trying to find the most important item, if you do manage to come across into the optional challenge, basically though, you can able to actually carry up to like 20 items if you do manage to able to upgrade the actual item storage capacity, as well as that. Meanwhile, on the Switch version, basically though, you can able to start the game off as you carry up to 15 items, which is quite a lot. Although you were able to actually carry 5 more, and it still managed able to reach up to 20 items at a time. So as a result, yeah, nothing different in terms of the forms of the, comparisons to the forms of the GameCube version, but that's besides the point. So anyway, so as you can see, we did manage able to brought some items ranging from the forms of maple syrup, in addition to that, same applies with the forms of Dusty Hammer, in addition to that, Thunderbolt, dried shroom, and of course regular mushroom, because if you keep on giving certain amount of items to this particular NPC right here, basically what happens was though is about the fact that it's always important to know that if he goes like this particular dialogue right here, basically though he decides to able to actually give you multiple options, like for instance not necessary, or about dry desert, and favorite food, and in addition to that though, any other options you can probably think about, which I know for a fact that, like I said before, I do apologize about the fact that my commentary is a little bit iffy sometimes, because, well, generally speaking, though, it has been about 3 days ago since I actually have last played this game for sure, especially concerning for all that particular parts worth noting for that, we're getting very close to the hype for Nintendo Switch 2 after all, especially because, well, for those of you probably wondering, yes, today's date, of course, there is the 31st of March today, in some cases in 2025 today, so you know what that means? Welcome to the final day of March in 2025. Now, as a result, until tomorrow, it will be April. So because of that, though, and as I said this before, that we've only got about 2 more days left until the hype is about to begin. Well, in terms of the forms of Nintendo Switch 2 for the Nintendo Direct. So I'm really hoping about the fact that that particular Direct will be twice as more exciting in comparison to the forms of how it does on the previous Nintendo Direct we do have. Mind you, it's a bit smaller in comparison to the forms of the past Directs, since it during the forms have been June last year on the 18th, but that's just mainly because no matter what though is about the fact I'm just very curious to know what's going to be up next for Nintendo after all, so but I digress. So, and also as far as I'm aware, I'm generally surprised, the only thing I forgot to mention about, during the course of the forms of around a couple of days ago, since on Friday, that did you know there's going to be yet another video game movie is going to be on its way until specifically the exact same year as in Sonic the Hedgehog 4, and that's what appears to be for the fact that apparently though, The Legend of Zelda the movie will be releasing during at some point on the exact same month and the exact same year as in Sonic the Hedgehog 4 movie. Now, as of course, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The Legend of Zelda movie is going to be on its way until 2027, and during the evolves on 26th of March. So, I'm guessing it's more specifically about the fact that they're trying to able to do a dedicated 10th anniversary of the game's release of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or something like that. Well, time will tell though, especially because after all, we're still literally 2 years away for 2027 for able to try to wait for not only, as I mentioned this earlier, from the likes of The Legend of Zelda the movie, mind you, it's going to be a live-action film, much like the forms of how it does on a Minecraft movie. In addition to that, though, as I mentioned this earlier, same applies with the forms of Sonic the Hedgehog 4 as well. So anyways, as you can see, we've made our way back to the shop again, and we need to buy only 2 items specifically in order to able to progress. Like, for instance, though, we need to buy the dried shroom and Dusty Hammer, because once you're done with that, he's going to tell us about the fact that we can able to actually know more about the forms of what the next clue we need to able to figure this out before we're able to actually continue our progression. So, because as far as I'm aware, when I was younger, I can never seem to able to get past by this point because I have no choice but to like look up on guides or anything else like that. But actually, as it turns out, is about the fact that you do need to deliver quite a few items to that particular Sheik kind of character, and so much to the point for the fact that as soon as you're able to done with that, well, obviously that was about the fact that we need to backtrack for a bit to the shops and then buy these two specific items, which is of course Dried Shroom and Dusty Hammer. And then once you're done with that, you can now able to go back onto the previous part right here, and now we can able to continue our progress here. And naturally, we can now able to go onto the rooftops and stuff like that. It kind of reminds me like a similar vibes as the forms of Agrabah, from the likes of the forms of Aladdin, not only for the likes of the forms of specific Kingdom Hearts games ranging from Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts 2 especially, and especially noticeable with the forms of 358 over 2 days, and especially noticeable with Recoded as well. Because generally speaking, unlike the Chain of Memories, where basically though it's almost like a smaller kind of rooms, kind of environments to it, especially because you have to use cards in order to able to progress in certain rooms. So, but either way, but actually as it turns out is about the fact that this mouse fella was actually by the forms of someone in disguise. So no matter what though, I believe something tells me about the fact that he doesn't want to tell everyone about the secrets of how on earth we're able to actually get into the Dry Ruins itself. So because of that though, yeah, it may look like about the fact that we can now able to actually get something that is very important to us, and as soon as we've done so, then we can potentially try to rescue the second Star Spirit for reals. So generally speaking, after scourging around, he forms the dry desert itself, so either way. And remember during the forms of the actual one of those sections in dry desert, that you noticed about the fact that there's this very unexpected rock that it does manage to contain that little insult hole? Well, actually as it turns out, that particular part is going to be important, which we'll definitely try to find it. But before we get to that though, we need to figure out something for trying to able to actually get into Dry Ruins itself, and so much to the point we've somehow got ourselves the Pulse Stone. So as a result though, think of like the forms of a monitor or something like that. Like for instance though, if you keep a hold of the forms of Pulse Stone, basically though, that'll be the key important elements to able to actually access to Dry Ruins. So, and by the way, something's worth noting for is that Dry Desert, as far as the name itself is concerned, well, not to be confused, as the exact same name as the forms of Dry Ruins, not only for Mario Kart Wii, but alongside with the forms of Mario Kart Tour as well. Although despite the fact that they share the exact same name as the forms of one of the racetracks or something like that, although mind you though, it's about the fact that it does manage to contain Yoshi Spanx during the forms of well, Dry Ruins as the actual racetrack in Mario Kart Wii. Will mind you though about the fact it has been quite some time since I actually have last played not only Mario Kart Wii, but alongside with the forms of Mario Kart Tour as well, just because, you know, let's face it though, I'm almost about to be prepared to be ready for the next installment in terms of the Mario Kart games, which is of course the newest one in the lineup for Nintendo Switch 2, of course. So, anyway, so with that being said, we need to bring back some of our items back. Like, for instance, we'll try to bring, no matter what though, I think it's probably best for me to able to actually try to return back every single items as much as I could. So just in case for emergency's sake, and in addition to that, with some more post-game content is going to be on its way, well, don't expect about the fact that, you know, like I said before, that this Let's Play is going to be so lengthy. Well, no one knows, like, as lengthy compared to the forms of how it does it in, you know, as we've already established that in the past, ranging from Super Mario Odyssey and Sonic Frontiers, so we can pretty much expect about the fact that if we do more role-playing games in the future, then obviously that was about the fact that some other parts will attempt to go a lot more lengthier if we do some parts correctly, so. But yeah, as you can tell about the fact that I'm almost gathered every single items, except a couple, so essentially what I'm gonna do here is that, actually no matter what though, I might try to able to actually sell something, like for instance though, I'm also able to actually sell, not only for the sake of the forms of, well, let's just say, lime right here, so we can able to actually sell that. Mind you, it's only for about 1 coin, so it seems kind of pointless, but regardless of such though, I'm just only trying to do this for the sake of trying to able to actually bring back some of my items to able to actually store into the actual stuff itself. So either way, so we'll just bring back the Super Shroom, and also we'll bring back the egg for later. So either way though, I think that should be all sorted. Mind you though, I was expecting to try to able to claim back the Sleepy Sheep, but I'm probably not gonna use it that often because I'm intentionally trying to able to keep the healing items for the upcoming battles and stuff like that, or incoming battles. So anyways though, oh yeah, there's also another thing else I'd like to point out as well. I also heard about the fact that we might able to actually hear more about Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie is going to be on its way. I mean, mind you though, it's about the fact that it has been such a quite a long while since we've somehow last mentioned about the films of Five Nights at Freddy's film series for that department. Plus, it's mainly because, well, ever since in last Thursday, that someone did somehow say about the fact that there's going to be some upcoming news for Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie. So because of that though, yeah, I'm very curious to know what that's going to be about. So anyway, oh, and also another thing else I'd like to point out as well, that did you guys know about the fact that there was actually that particular cartoon show which appears to be Crypto the Super Dog. That particular series has been out for 20 years, since March 25th in 2005, which I never knew that was a thing, especially about the fact that when I was younger, that I attempted able to actually stick that on for whatever reason, because that was used to be on Burrowing, if I can recall correctly. Well, mind you, it's been donkey's years since I've last watched any of those episodes for the sake of the films of Crypto the Super Dog, which obviously inspires by Superman, but with the forms of dog form. So I guess that makes it totally obvious for the sake of the forms of, like, not knowing the show as much what I was used to be, I guess. So, but as you can see, we somehow managed able to utilize the spin attack badge, and basically though, if you manage to try to use it at the right time, right at the forms of, for example, one of the Pokies right there, you're able to actually give them dizzy. So as a result though, yeah, that'll be essential if you're trying to able to actually take down multitude of enemies at once. So as a result though, yeah, there goes the forms of those 3 Pokies, despite the fact that we're about to be gathering lesser amount of those star points. Plus it's mainly because at this point in time, we need to try to find one of those spots in Journey Forms of in Dry Desert. So in fact, once you hear the actual whole stone is about to keep on flashing, that actually signifies you're actually going to be getting pretty closer to its destination. So yeah, it's not going to be that far from here though, because, you know, as you probably already expect, that we've already covered every single secret in Journey Forms of in Dry Desert. So, and there it is right here. So as a result, now the estimation mark is about to show up. So this means about the fact that we might able to actually place the pulse stone right at the forms of that particular stone itself. So either way, and no matter what though, if we're trying to able to actually do something like that, it might able to actually activate something that's going to be very, very, very important. So yeah, in fact, that's already been inserted, and it looks like that one of the rocks has been disappeared. Oh geez, something tells me it reminds me of so much of the Cave of Wonders vibes. Although, except the fact that we're not going to be able to come across into the Cave of Wonders or anything else like that, so instead it's going to be, you know what I mean, the actual temple, which is actually known as Dry Ruins, so. And it looks like it's gone nighttime somehow. Looks very atmospheric, and especially noticeable is a lot more mysterious than ever. So naturally though, we can now able to actually go inside Dry Ruins itself. Now there's some things worth noting for. I really love the actual specific details about this scene, where basically though, as you can tell, everything else is in night. So as a result though, relatively speaking though, is about the fact I really do wish if this game will actually utilizes the day and night system. And no matter what though, that doesn't seem to be the case sadly, because if you try to enter in the forms of the actual Dry Ruins itself, or potentially speaking of, if you try to go into the other sections of Dry Desert itself, it will change back into daytime, and also if you couldn't tell, there's no background music. So unless if you, again, trying to able to actually exit out not only certain parts of Dry Desert, but also about the fact that if you try to get out Dry Ruins itself. But let's not worry about that too much because, well, we're about to be entering into the actual Dry Ruins itself. So, but as soon as we enter it, well, it looks like that particular mysterious voice was trying to warn us about the forms of not entering the temple. But I'm not scared, because obviously that was about the fact that we're here just to try to rescue the second star spirits. That's our main goal with the forms of Chapter 2. So, yeah, I'm generally surprised about the fact that Chapter 2 has gone pretty lengthy so far. But eventually at some point in the later chapters though, it will start to get a lot more lengthier. So don't expect about the fact that we can able to try to go through like the quickest time imaginable. If there are some situations about the fact that we definitely need to try to deal with some more battles here and now. Just gonna say that much. And I believe something tells me there's gonna be some more enemies nearby, such as for instance we come across into those mummies here, or specifically mummy pokies. So as a result though, yeah, I do know what their names are, so either way though, I was assuming if I was trying to bring out Goom Mario, just in case we can able to actually check his status here. But for the most part though, we'll just go ahead and oh yeah, occasionally though, there are random times about the fact that Marley right here decides able to actually do some increasing status. Like, you remember how about the fact that we've already did manage to purchase the special course earlier? Well, basically though, it's about the fact that sometimes it randomly triggers the forms of certain effects during battle. Like, for example, in the forms of on my previous turn, as you can tell, that she actually activates my strength actually goes a lot higher. So as a result though, it only happens one time. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that again, it's going to be quite random at times until you're able to stumble across into some random effects is actually going to be involved. So, and another one of those examples being the forms of, you know, trying to get yourselves defense higher, and on top of that, getting some more coins after battle, and in addition to that, double the experience points. So that'll be essential if you really want to try to go ahead and, you know, keep on leveling up until specifically later on, that is. So, but anyway, so since we somehow switch over to Goom Mario right here, so as a result, we can now able to title the forms of Pokemummies. So, yeah, Pokemummies does have 4 HP, similar to the forms of how it does it in the regular Poke anime. But in addition to that, the attack power is 2 and defense power is 0. So basically, it does have the exact same stats as the forms of how it does it for regular Pokés. So nothing different from there. So I can imagine about the fact that I'm pretty sure that those guys will attempt able to, like, I don't know if they're trying to poison me or something like that. Well, mind you though, about the fact that generally speaking, again, like I said before, it's been about 3 days ago since I actually have last played this game for sure. And to make matters even much more better than that obviously though, as you probably already expect, recently though, Blaze the Cat, she's somehow finally finished up every single aspect in terms of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Winter Games for the Nintendo DS version. So, yeah, no more delays, no more frustration here and there, and to top it all off, we are finally about to be moving on to potentially our next Let's Play for the Weekends department. So, but I digress. So as you can see, we stumbled across into ourselves our next badge, which is also going to be helpful if you try to take care of the forms of those spiked enemies, and that's of course, Spike Shield. Where basically though, if you try to jump onto spiked enemies for instance, like Pokés, that way, you don't take any damage. So, yeah, for instance though, we're about to take on yet another set of these Pokemummies. So generally speaking, if we somehow use jump, as you can see, we don't take any damage if you somehow equip the spiked shield. So yeah, that's actually pretty useful, especially noticeable for later enemies coming up. So yeah, pretty cool and essential at the same time. Well, mind you though, about the fact that at some point throughout the majority of the forms of this game in particular though, that sometimes we do have to rarely occasionally try to able to equip a different set of amount of badges though sometimes, which either way though, it can be a nuisance at times, because obviously though I'm still pretty much used to with the sequel's badge system, that obviously though you can able to equip the insane amount of those badges whenever you wanted to in Journey Forms of Been 1,000 Year Door, but that's just me. So Anyways, much like the forms of how it does it in Koopa Bros Fortress in Chapter 1, we do need to once again collect some more keys, and there's also a lot of emphasis on puzzle solving too, so either way. So as you can tell, we activate the switch right there, so that way it makes the sand go through the floor, which pretty much leads us to the continuation of the temple itself. So as a result, we can now able to actually explore some more areas in this place, so... But anyway, back to what I was saying about the forms of some news, discussions alike. Obviously that was about the fact that I've already mentioned about this briefly, ever since in Journey Forms of on Friday sometime, that obviously that was about the fact that recently that Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble have already got a Pac-Man playable character DLC. Well, in addition to that, there's also the new version update, which at this point in time, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble was now onto version 2.20 version update, which I'm not entirely sure what that update will be featured during that time, but I suppose no matter what though, in addition to able to actually bring ourselves Pac-Man as a playable character as DLC, in addition to that, there's also a brand new Battle Arena is now being accessible in Journey Forms of in Robot Smash Battle Mode, and that's what appears to be the new Floria Ring stage. So yeah, I guess that's pretty cool though. In addition to that, there are some additional adjustments and bug fixes as well. So as a result though, despite the fact that the entire description has not been addressed yet, but hopefully they will do at some point in later down the road, assuming of course about the fact that obviously though I've already managed able to download Pac-Man as a playable character, which at this point in time, that Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble is now on to 22 playable characters so far, which is pretty insane if you ask me. Like, the exact same amount of playable characters in terms of the forms of quantity as the forms of how it does it for Super Mario Party Jamboree, because you know, both Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble and Super Mario Party Jamboree, both did which came out in the exact same year in 2024, but in a different month. Like for instance, Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble did came out in June, the same month as the forms of in well, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and meanwhile for Super Mario Party Jamboree, they came out in October. So yeah, as you can see, since that occasionally though, as I mentioned this before, about the fact that Marley decides able to actually increase our star points value, which as a result, previously I was expecting to try to get myself 4 star points, but now I've somehow got doubled it all up into 8. So I could imagine about the fact that if we try to take on one of the boss battles coming up, then obviously though we can get the insane amount of those star points. But then again though, it happens on a random occasions, but sometimes though you won't able to actually guarantee to able to actually come across into that effect, because like I said before, it can be pretty random at times. So it's a good thing we did somehow manage to able to spend on the special course rather than the forms of the other two options. So, and there's a star piece right there in case if you're curious. So yeah, at this point we're now on to, you know, 13 star pieces so far. So, and as far as trying to grinding those star pieces though, well, it can take a bit while though, because the majority of them was actually locked out behind one of those quizzes that we have to try and deal with it. So anyways, let's go and bring out Goom Mario again, so just in case we can able to try to take on those Buzzy Beetles right there. So either way, as you can tell, much like the forms of how it does it for those Koopa Troopers, we do need to get them tumbled over, and just to ensure for the fact that we can able to do proper damage if they're in upside down. So yeah, in terms of status though, for Buzzy Beetles, they do have 3 HP, and attack power is 2, and lastly, defense power was also 2. So relatively speaking, I was about the fact that I don't think it's possible we can able to actually use the hammer for the time being, so we'll just have to like keep on jumping onto them, and that's all we have to do for this point. So yeah, pretty self-explanatory right there. So oh, and by the way, something's worth noting for too, that remember in Journey Forms of in the earliest point, in Journey Forms of in Chapter 2, after we somehow managed able to recruit ourselves with Perry Carey, well, remember that particular partner we did somehow managed able to recruit with him, and as a result we did somehow managed able to find one of those badges, which appears to be the Quake Hammer. Well, Quake Hammer is going to be essential in this part, because there's going to be one of those enemies is going to be usually revolves around about the fact that one of the enemies will decide able to hang in into the ceiling. So no matter what though, we'll try to explain more about that later. So let's just go ahead and grab this ruins key right here. So naturally we can able to continue our progress here. And also, as far as I'm aware, the save point at the moment right now is actually at the beginning portion of the ruins itself. So I might not have to worry about that for right now. So either way, so I'm pretty sure that particular artifact will be important for later. So just to ensure for the fact that we're probably not gonna miss it though. So as far as I'm aware, we do need to find something around here. So I don't suppose we're probably not going to activate those coffins or anything else like that. So we can just essentially continue things on here and hit this block. And so much to the point, it's a trap. So we have to take care of those pokey mummies for this point. So yeah, just like defaults of how it does it in chapter 1 though, we do need to take care of these enemies first before we continue our progress here. So anyways though, oh yeah, there's also another thing else I'd like to point out as well, is about the fact that I did recently try out a next flavor of Pringles for the sake of the phones of, well, Pringles is essentially crisps in the UK, and as a result though, they recently brought out the Mario edition for those specific brandings, and one of those flavors I did manage to try out, which appears to be the mysterious flavor, which is usually has like a silver metallical kind of background with the question mark block is actually going to be involved in there, and it did manage to say mystery flavor. And as far as what I did manage to did my taste test off screen actually, and before I've eaten, I'm like, you know what? I don't mind it. Like, as a result though, it almost tastes like a pasta sauce with minced meat due to the forms of Mario Bros. Fondness of spaghetti, which I guess that makes it totally obvious because both Mario and Luigi are both Italian plumbers, so I guess that makes it totally obvious they are so obsessed with spaghetti after all. So anyways though, so as you can see, there's yet another enemy we can able to try and deal with right here. That's what appears to be Swooper. Swooper does have 4 HP and attack power is 2, and lastly defense power was 0. And as you can see, we're now going to be using the Quake Hammer. So naturally speaking though, in addition to try to deal a certain amount of damage to ground enemies, but also the ceiling enemies as well, like these swoopers for instance. Although you can also use the hammer throw as well, but I'm most likely going to be able to try to say this right now, that I'm actually going to be sticking around with Quake Hammer from now on because it does so much more damage. Although, it wasn't until for later on though, that obviously though about the fact that we might able to come across into ourselves the upgraded version of one of our attacks or something like that. So, anyways, let's go and use the Quake Hammer again to try to deal with some even more damage. Not only for the sake of the forms of Mummy Pokey, but also about the fact that we can able to drag down Swooper into the actual battle, because truth be told, when the Swooper was actually on the ceiling, then you can't necessarily try to jump, because obviously though, that we might bonk our heads, so either way, let's go and try to finish him off. And so much so, we did. Nice one. So I believe we are getting very close to our next level up, so yeah, that should be pretty swell. And we can now able to actually progress, so thanks to the forms of this glorious key. So with that being said folks, let's go ahead and grab the key, and suffice to say, we should probably end things off at this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Paper Mario. Is that we're going to be continuing exploring through Dry Ruins, and eventually at some point, we can able to actually try to rescue the second Star Spirit. So yeah, I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.